Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and I am here with my January and February wrap-up, which you can pretty much say is what I have read in 2016. I'm at this angle today because I just finished French February, which I set myself a goal of reading 5 books, 5 specific books. I was only able to get 3 of them complete. I started 2 of the others. I was already reading Les Mis, and She Came to Stay I started. I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but my French literature is up in this area, and if you can see closely, there's my collection of Guy de Maupassant's short stories. He is notable most for a short story called The Necklace, which we will be going over later this season. But anyway, I should begin showing you the books that I have read for the year thus far. First thing I read and completed is The Little Giant Encyclopedia of Oneliners by Jean Perret with Terry Martin. Jean Perret actually would write material for Carol Burnett, which is where he got his start. And in this collection, he collects one-liners that were shared by noteworthy comics such as Henny Youngman, Milton Berle, George Burns, Mae West, and even more recent names like Ellen DeGeneres, Howie Mandel, even Bill Maher has one-liner in here. The older comics tend to have more quotes in here. Even people that you don't see as being comics. You have authors like Mark Twain, and even Abraham Lincoln has a quote or 2 in here. I think that this can be enjoyed most when you read it piece by piece. I think that if you're going through it completely, I don't know how much you're going to get out of it, but if you come back and forth to this every so often, or you look at a chapter here and there, this is definitely a delight. And I enjoy the Little Giant books and Little Giant encyclopedias that I started collecting more than 10 years ago. I gave this an 8 out of 10. And I highly suggest that you pick this up and the other Little Giant books and encyclopedias. They have jokes, magic tricks, science experiments, knock-knock jokes. The encyclopedias, there are card games, word games, the Zodiac. Just a lot to offer. Next thing I read was Andrew's Brain by E.L. Doctorow. I have a review video for this, and I'll leave a link to that down below. But I would say overall that while this novel doesn't necessarily dig beneath the surface, and it's pretty much what you see is what you get, but it's so existential and so absurdly intelligent, which is an oxymoron in itself, but it's just quite something how Andrew tells his story, and we're not sure how reliable or how much pity we should feel for him, but his execution is just like none other, and I think that E.L. Doctorow, I need to read more of his work in order to compare, but this really gave me a good impression to read on. I gave this an 8 out of 10 because it was at the end where I realized that this is quite remarkable. Next thing I read was A Happy Death by Albert Camus. I'm doing my best to make my way through his collection. I really enjoyed The Stranger. I read The Plague, I thought it was okay. I read The Fall. I thought that was a mediocre. I thought A Happy Death was better. Nothing compared to The Stranger. I gave it 7 out of 10, but the story is said to have set a foundation for The Stranger, and I think that in some ways it does. The main character is also named Mersal. His name is Patrice Mersal, and he also kills a man, but there's a bit more of an explanation behind his motives, and it seems like A Happy Death is The Stranger without the existential elements that really make The Stranger stick out. There, you have the you can run parallels to the characters that are meant to provide a sense of comic relief. You have him caring for particular partners, but he seems to possess more of an emotion, and it's not blunt the way that Mersal from The Stranger was. Did that take anything away from it? I don't know, but I still much prefer The Stranger. I think that it is among the greatest works of existentialism in literature. Next thing I read, I also reviewed, and I will leave a link to that down below, and that is The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. I thought that this was, as I said, I gave it a marginal disapproval because I felt that it could have been so much more. They presented so many great characters, but when this could have been Despereaux's tale, it takes so much away and concentrates so much on the other characters and building them up that you really don't see Despereaux as being this gallant hero the way that I came into this novel thinking that he would be. And I felt that it was very that there was not as much substance to it as I thought. And then there were points where it just got too ridiculous, and also to the point, I think the biggest flaw is that I'm trying to pinpoint a target audience for this novel, and I just have difficulty doing so. I gave this a 5 out of 10. Next thing I read is my favorite thing from the first 2 months, and that is great French short stories edited by Paul Negri. I read the great Russian short stories that Negri also edited, and I really enjoyed those. But I would say that I actually like this more. Granted, I read the Russian collection 4 years ago, so I may have a different taste. But I would say that the stories that stick out to me, and I definitely want to go over them again because I really want to be able to absorb them much more, is Legend of St. Julian the Hospitaller by Gustave Flaubert. Both of Guy de Maupassant's stories, The Necklace and The Horla. The Attack on the Mill by Émile Zola, which I feel that after reading that, I got a great taste of Zola's writing, and I already have a bit of a collection from him, and I have a few of his novels, the Rogan Marquette series, and I really want to look into him much more now. Prosper Mérimée, Medio Falcone, which I think there's a little bit of a bias though to it because they mention a character that his profession is that he's a Caporelli, and I'm pretty sure that there is some ancestry connection to that, since that is, in fact, my last name. In many cases, last names would reflect professions that people would have, or they would have some kind of particular connection of that sense. So it was quite, it really sparked my attention. And Micromegas by Voltaire, which is a really clever piece about someone from Saturn and someone from the moon of Sirius coming to Earth and examining and getting their perspective of what they see from such a visit. This was just quite a collection, just amazing short stories, and I'm sure that you're going to have your favorites, and they're going to stick with you. And I think that these really stuck out, and I'm definitely proposing one or more of them for our standard episodes. I gave this a 9 out of 10. The next thing I finished is the Harley Quinn Volume 1, Hot in the City. After watching some booktubers talking about comics, I've been talking with Jen from Checker Joy. I'll leave a link to her channel down below as well, because I really enjoy her videos, and we have some... you can have extended discussions with her. She's just very hands-on with her channel. And one of the collections she mentioned was the Harley Quinn series that pretty much is getting me back into comic book reading. I enjoyed this. I really enjoy reading the Harley Quinn comics. Batman is probably the franchise that I enjoy the most, and Harley Quinn is a spin-off from that, since she has a crush on the Joker, who she met when she was a counselor and she was working at Arkham Asylum. And this branches off from that and portrays her more as an anti-hero. She does things that are more justified, but there are still a bit of inconsistencies, which I still had a thrilling experience. I definitely want to read more, and I gave it a 7 out of 10. That's everything I read and completed. The things that I started but did not complete just yet are Les Miserables by Victor Hugo and She Came to Stay by Simone de Beauvoir. I have the bookmarks out because I'm currently putting these on a bit of a hiatus while I read some other things during the month of March. But I'm 51% of the way through Les Mis and close to 50% of the way through She Came to Stay. Les Mis is quite a mammoth. It's a bit dense, but it's pretty fascinating, I would say. She Came to Stay is a bit dense as well, and I think that the people that would get the most out of it is people that, readers that enjoy the various relationships that take place, the many affairs that people have with one another. And She Came to Stay was inspired by de Beauvoir's own experiences when her husband, Jean-Paul Sartre, was seeing someone else and how it made an impact on her life. Month of March is going to be quite an interesting month. I am not able to confirm what I'm going to be reading just yet, but there's one thing I'm definitely planning to read, and that is A Time to Kill by John Grisham. I'm doing this as a buddy read with Lauren from Lauren in the Books. We were talking about Grisham when she was talking about Skipping Christmas, and she suggested that we do a buddy read of Grisham's, because I definitely want to get back into him. It's been a while since I read one of his novels, and why don't we start from the beginning, and Time to Kill it is. This is quite an interesting piece about a 10-year-old girl, about a 10-year-old girl who gets killed by these two men, who in turn end up getting killed by the girl's father, who is a black man. And he is tried, and this brings in the defense attorney, Jack Brigance, who is really up. He's in for a handful, because the fact that the man killed these two guys is a situation in itself, but the fact that he is a black man in the South during this period of time really gives him, he's placed himself in a really sticky situation. And I'm going to be reading this 50 pages at a time, and I'll be discussing it with Lauren from Lauren in the Books, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below. Alrighty, that is everything that I read during the past 2 months. I'm really looking forward to my March reading. Thank you for tuning in to another video, and for now, keep reading.